government is, being a communist government, is healthcare is a cost center on the central government's budget, right? They don't make profit, they just have to fund their hospital system. So if you think about the United States, we have 5,600 hospitals in the United States, there are 22,000 hospitals in China, just for perspective. So I was asked, while I was still at IBCC, I was asked by one of the ministers of health if I would consider coming back to China as a second opinion on how do you privatize the hospital system in China. So I went and did that work. With Express Scripts, what we have done is now we're looking at what about the cost? How do you manage cost and quality? So there's an access issue, there's a cost issue, there's a quality issue. In China, physicians, about 40% of their income is based on pharmaceuticals, them writing scripts. So that's probably not the right system, but if you pull that 40% of their income away, then what happens? So what Express Scripts has been able to do is set up 2 pilots in 2 different cities in China, including Xi'an, to start looking at all of the claims data and looking at protocols of how you might deliver care and how you could standardize some of that care and start to look at maybe some of the fraud that's taking place in the country. So that's just the beginning stages of how they're going to start to set up networks, healthcare networks like we have in the United States.
I saw a hand in the middle. Fall off the stage.
Terrible throw.
Steve, I need your help.
You're older than man spotted.
Within your speech, you talk about establishing relationships within cultures. I'm much more interested in what is your strategy in strengthening that relationship?
So that's a great question, and I think the first issue is you have to sort of be quiet and observe. Sounds obvious, again, as American business leaders, not necessarily our strength. We tend to dominate the conversation, we tend to talk a lot. So for instance, let me give you a subtlety in China. Steve and people will know this. When you're sitting at dinner in China, it's very protocol based. So whoever has the thinnest chopsticks at the table actually has the most status. I can't tell you how many American business people I've talked to who don't even know what I'm talking about. They haven't observed that. They haven't looked at that. So I think this notion of what I have seen is people go to China, they have a bunch of meetings, they travel around and they jump out. I'm not convinced business is actually occurring. I will tell you, I have been to China, I have worked with many hospitals, I have gone to state-run parks with people's families, I've sat down in their homes for dinner. I think that's really important when you're trying to learn a culture, is to be gracious and to take part in who they are and who their culture is and their activities, and not only your own agenda and your own time frame. I know a lot of international business people who actually don't ever look up and look around at where they are. They're at a Marriott in Beijing, they could be anywhere in the United States. They had their 3 meetings and they're gone. That's okay in the moment, because you might have a deadline and you want to get a contract done, which by the way won't mean anything in China, but it means something to people in America. That's okay in the moment. That probably won't help you long-term establish a network in that country, because it's very relationship-based. And it's not dissimilar in other countries. I will tell you, people ask me, what are you the most proud of in your career? And this is what I will tell you. Every day when I get up in the morning and I look myself in the mirror, I'm very proud that I still have integrity, that I never sold out, that I try to do the right thing. And as easy and simple as that sounds, it is very difficult to actually do. Part of that is honoring the culture and the people that you are with and starting to hear their stories and building relationships that last. My relationships with Tsinghua University or Peking University have lasted 20 years. I'm not there for 3 months to get one deal done. I want to think forward about the future and how do I play a role in that dialogue in 10 years. That's what I'm thinking about. That's the notion of staying relevant. So I think that's a really great question and really important.
I think you had your hand up first, and since you're closer.
Yes, I have a question about you. You said you had different degrees at that time, and which seems like had no connection at that time, but now you have a great success. My question is that, do you think that the certainty of the time flows, that somehow later all the different conditions, different majors will come
So the question is, will all the different degree programs and the subject matter come together in a sort of multidisciplinary way?
Oh, yes, and how do you like manage the time, management?
So that's a complicated issue, right? Because to get hired in business, you really have to have a focus. So my first couple of jobs, I didn't even tell people about my anthropology back in the day because they thought it was a little, nuts. So we didn't talk a lot about that. Now it's become so popular and so exciting after all these years. But you do have to have a business focus, and you do have to actually technically and functionally learn something that brings value to the companies that want to hire you. I do believe the quantitative and the qualitative methods of doing business are going to merge. So the discipline of business anthropology and ethnography and ethnographic study, which is a qualitative toolkit, I believe is very valuable, even doing quantitative work. Knowing the numbers, so, I think most finance people will have this debate, can you manage a company purely by numbers? And most of us think you get a pretty far way if you really understand how to read financials and numbers, understanding what's in the company. But beyond that, even in the stock market today, when you're buying a piece of stock, you're voting your confidence on that executive team. That is a qualitative measure. So I do think understanding both qualitative and quantitative methods and tools is important, but beyond that, I don't think it matters. I think you have to start to build a toolkit that works with your personality and works for you with the opportunities that you're given. For me, medical anthropology is just another toolkit. So doing something that's left brain or right brain or learning a language is another toolkit. That's all you're doing, is every year try to add something to your toolkit. What I would encourage you to do today is, if there's a country in which you want to work, which by the way, you can do international in the United States also, but if you want to work in a country, I want you to commit to doing 3 things in the next 12 months that will get you there. You don't have to get there in a professional way, you don't have to be in a company, but make sure you're traveling there, because what you think in your mind and the reality of being in that country may be very different. Okay.
Your time for a couple more.
I think I'm way over time.
Oh, we have a little break, so some
Okay.
great questions. Here we go. Here we go. Second. There we go.
Kind of relating off this question, let's say I'm a sales manager of a company, my degree's in marketing, but with the way business is today, can that bring me overseas even though I'm not